All right. Looks like we are live on YouTube. It usually takes a few seconds to get rolling, but welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always by my co-host Ben Stiller. Or
Dude, oh, absolutely. I get that. The blue steel comment. I don't even know if I did it here. I wasn't thinking of it, so I got to look in the camera and do this whole
Yeah, I
freaking
think you.
thing.
I think the opposite. I think you were actually thinking about it and purposely didn't do it. I'm trying to fix my
No,
camera
dude,
as we
I would
speak.
lean into it. I put it up on my Instagram story. I thought it was hilarious.
No, it was funny. We appreciate all the listeners making jokes on our behalf and trying to have some fun with what is the New York Giants football franchise, a not fun franchise as of late. But today, the Giants, I don't want to say it like this, did the right thing because I really don't want I need to make it clear for the thousandth time. I don't blame the Giants for winning games. I don't blame the players. I don't blame the coaches. We understand that we were just strictly speaking results based, and the result of today was good for the New York Football Giants. They lost to the Eagles, though, gave us a little scare late with that insane Malik Neighbors touchdown. He is such a phenomenal football
He's
player
so
for the
good, dude.
Giants. The body control, the contact balance to stay on his feet to make that touchdown work. And then they actually did what I mean, some thought they should have done last week, and they blew it with an offsides and a roughing the passer to keep a drive going. Not that I think Drew Lock honestly would have went down and scored anyway. He threw an interception with the time winding down. And the Giants ended up losing this football game to the Eagles, despite the Eagles resting all their starters. And I mean all of their starters, offensive line, all their skill guys, playing a practice squad quarterback who I think is probably more talented than anyone on the Giants roster now for sure. And in my opinion, and I know people will hate this, and I don't give a fuck, than anyone that was on the Giants roster in 2024, at least as far as throwing a football goes, because his footballs, when he throws them, they don't come out like a duck, like the 1 for 13 the Giants were in the first 5 games on 20-plus yard throws outside the numbers, non-existent. He threw outside the numbers, including a 3rd and 15. He layered outside the numbers for a first down. He throws a pretty good ball, McKean. He's 6'6". It's just crazy that he's their practice squad QB, Nick, and our slew of QBs that we have in our quarterback room to enter a 2024 season are just trash across the board. And that's the scenario. And the Eagles won because of that. I mean, McKee, Nick, threw for 269 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, completing over 27 of 41. That's over 70% of his passes. It's insane. And didn't turn the ball over. That's why the Eagles won this game. Drew Lock turned the ball over and had 4.8 yards per attempt and 138 passing yards in a game, Nick.
They also didn't commit any penalties. All their backups, they didn't commit any
Yeah,
penalties.
that is interesting. It shows how well coached they are. And so, yeah, the Giants lost. And, Nick, the Patriots, to their fans' dismay, and I know they're not happy about this, found a way to win.
Screw them, dude. They had Drake May in their quarterback room.
And they might end up getting Brian Daboll to coach Drake May, which is what I was always hoping for the Giants to get a chance. And my God, I will say this now, and I'll go down with this ship if it happens. I think Drake May is the perfect fit for a Brian Daboll system, given the amount of hours I've watched a tape of this system. Those intermediate throws, Drake May will rip them. And those open receivers we see every week when we watch tape of the Giants, May will hit those receivers in New England. Now, they don't have any receivers. They'll have to get some. But I would love to see that pairing if the Giants move on.
Smirch Pop, bro.
Oh, Pop Douglas, yeah. No, I'd like to see that pairing if the Giants do decide to move on from Brian Daboll. But that win moves the Giants to number 3 in the draft, with the Browns winning earlier. And the Titans, just an absolute pathetic joke of a team that can't even beat Davis Mills or even compete with Davis Mills. That's how pathetic Will Levis and that group is. They moved to number 2 in the draft. So the Giants are sitting at 3 for the draft, Nick, which I think, ultimately speaking, is not the worst. Things could have been worse.
Things could have been a lot worse. And it's the end of this season, guys. The chapter is over.
That's great.
This was the worst chapter we have read collectively of the New York Giants. And now we can finally close that and turn the page to the NFL draft, turn the page to the future. And even though the Giants shot themselves in the foot a little bit last week by losing that number 1 overall selection, as we said, they're sitting there at 3 as still a prime pick in this draft, and they'll have their options, and we'll see which direction they go. And I mean, in 24 hours, by the time a lot of you guys are listening to this, we'll know exactly where the Giants are going from a regime standpoint, because that is still a little uncertain.
I don't know if we're definitely going to get that in 24 hours, Nick, because I was
You don't think it's going to be a Black Monday thing?
No, because I was thinking back to when
Okay.
Coughlin, and it was a different scenario, of course, but when Coughlin decision was made, they took 3 days to mull it over. And I saw a report from Ralph Acciano earlier today,
Okay.
who is very, very plugged into the beat and has been for quite some time. Pretty sure he has some inside sources like within the organization. It just feels like he said that it's not going to take as long as the Coughlin one took, but it could take a day or two to really grab this down.
Regardless, it's coming down the pipeline.
Oh
It's
yeah,
in short order, and that can give us somewhat of an idea on what the Giants may do
sure.
during the draft, or just the overall direction that the Giants are going to be headed in.
You're right. And there's been a lot of conflicting reports on that just from this morning, Nick. I don't know if you've seen them all, but Jordan Schultz had a report. Ralph Acciano had a
Yeah.
report. I believe one other report on just this, where they're at with this decision. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll. I'll say this, Nick. I think a listener made a great point in my replies during the game. It did feel a little bit like, and this was his point, it did feel a little bit like Brian Daboll was coaching this game knowing that his job was safe. It's just a feel that he got, the listener, and I kind of understand. Decisions like holding out Neighbors for a little bit of this game, playing a lot of these guys, Deontay Johnson, just haven't played all year. The way he coached this game in some ways, just got the feeling of that. Now, as I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, if they keep Joe Shane, I want them to keep Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with this. But I still would prefer that they clean house, not because I think they're in any kind of position to guarantee improvement if they move on and hire a new regime. We all know that's no guarantee with John Mara in this organization. But just because simply I don't think they've done a good job, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, at what their job is. And I think we have a lot of evidence to display that.
Yeah, we do. We do, man. It's we did a whole podcast on this. I encourage anybody who hasn't listened to it yet, go back and listen to this last one on the feed. And yeah, they keep Shane. I'm right there with you. You keep Daboll, and I I think the Giant fan base is well aware of the fact that this ownership, Tish and Mara specifically, they don't want to move on from either of these guys. And if they can rationalize it, and if there's any solid concrete plan moving forward, I think Mara and the ownership could be swayed into retaining these two. It's interesting. That's why over the next couple of days, 48 hours, whatever it is, it would be telling to know exactly what we can look forward to moving forward from a coaching standpoint. And then that doesn't even get into, like, say Daboll is retained. Is Shane Bowen retained?
Right.
What's going to happen to Mike Kafka, who's just kind of sitting here, like, not calling plays as the offensive coordinator? So there's still a lot of other questions that can be answered regarding the coaching staff.
And just other things, like I'm blanking on his name, I believe Joel Thomas or Joel something. But
Joel
like, are we going to lose good position coaches like Joel Thomas, who's done a great job with Tyrone Tracy in Europe? Just a phenomenal job after doing a phenomenal job with the Saints. Like, do I want to lose a player? Dre Patter, like all these guys that have just been big monumental pieces to the development of some of these pieces. And, it's not all doom and gloom. The Giants have had some development on this roster with some players, not everyone, not as much as we want, but some, and the coaches deserve credit for that. And we'd like to see those coaches retain, Nick. Even to be honest, Nick, I feel like, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, because we actually haven't discussed this weirdly enough in this season, but I feel like Carmen Brasillo's done a pretty damn good job, all things considered.
Of course.
Right? Like all things considered. So I kind of want him to be, I definitely want him to be back, especially knowing the other side of the coin. The grass is not always greener at offensive line coach. We've had guys like Hal Hunter in here for a year, like just disasters on the O-line. So that's another issue with this. So we'll see what happens there, Nick. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. And thank you to all of you who did listen to, view, and hit the like button and comment on the Shane video we did. Because it got good traction, and I was really excited to see that, given where we're at in the season and just, how, these narratives have been discussed at length at this point, but we wanted to break it down in depth, and I think we did a good job of that, Nick. So thank you to all the listeners for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. You guys are the men, the women, the myths, the legends. You guys are everything. And hopefully the Giants can provide us with something a little bit more enjoyable to talk about next season and going forward, because it's been pretty rough. We've been doing this podcast now for 6 years, Dan, and we had one season in 2022. And that season, it wasn't like the Giants were threatening for the Super Bowl. That was just cool because it was a surprise season, Brian Daboll's first year. And ever since then, it's been all downhill. So hopefully we can start heading back uphill soon.
Yeah, and I want to touch on one thing that was discussed in narratives, Nick, and just in my replies as well. A lot of people were against what I was wishing for, Nick, which was the Patriots to beat the Bills, because they suggested that we actually want the Patriots. They actually want the Patriots to lose so they can get the number 1 pick because it's easier to trade up with the Patriots who already have Drake May. I don't agree with that personally for a multitude of reasons. The first one being I just want as good of a pick as I can get because that pick has value. Remember when Mitchell Trubisky was traded for the Bears traded for Trubisky 3-2 they moved and they had to give a ton of capital just to move that. It is worth a lot. Every single spot is worth a lot. 1, 2. I already made it clear on the last pod, but in case it's new listeners, I don't want them trading up for any of these QBs. If they're taking 1 at 3, God bless. I hope it works, and I'm happy with it. But I don't want to trade up for any of these specific.
Yeah, we need to start hitting on these draft picks, man.
Yeah, I don't want to give up next year's 1 or even an early 2 that we freaking need to get guys on this roster. Now, if it was an Arch in this class, sure, I'd trade up because I don't give a crap at that point. I believe in him being a potential elite franchise guy. Sanders and Ward, I hope they can be, and I see the signs of them potentially being, especially Ward has some playmaker ability to him, but that's not a bet I'd be willing to risk future assets on personally. And I don't think I know a lot of people disagree with that too. I've seen that, Nick, people saying, if you like a quarterback and you're willing to draft him anyway, why not trade up for him? I don't agree with that. I think there's an opportunity cost. It's what we discussed last year, Nick, with the same scenario of if you kind of believe in a McCarthy, you see the possibility, why not just take him over Neighbors? Because we believe the opportunity cost is losing out on a Neighbors. And it's just how we feel and we've approached the draft. It's anything you and I have discussed, Nick. It's kind of independently how we evaluate and assess value and assets in roster building. And I'm standing by it.
No, and I think that's a good point. It's also interesting too, man. This game, look, it's a little 20-13 loss. Almost got a win in the link over a decade since the Giants won in the link, which is crazy. I think the last time they won in the link was in 2013. When Matt Barkley was the quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, something like absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Eli was playing for the Giants, obviously. But this could be the last time we've seen Darius Slayton as a New York Giant. I know Azeez Ojulari didn't play in this game, but he's an impending free. Like, there's a lot of free agents coming into this, man. Locke, obviously, Isaiah Simmons, Van Roten, Adoree Jackson, Manhertz, core special teamers like Olszewski, who we hardly saw this year, and Matthew Adams, Casey Kreider. So could be the last time we see these guys. Jason Pinnock, I believe, is a free agent as well. I'm wondering what the Giants do with that. Yeah, I'm wondering what the Giants do with that since he was basically a full-time starter here on this defense. So there's a lot of question marks when it comes to that. We'll cover that all the way up and through free agency. But,
also a good indicator that the Giants are unlikely to get any compensatory draft picks this offseason because none of those guys are going to sign for any kind of real deal.
No, absolutely not, dude.
They should get a 4th, though, this draft from the Xavier McKinney signing, just as a heads up. And one note on what you just said, this is such a small note, but, we watch enough and we have to comment on these types of things. It matters to me, Nick, because there have been problems here in the past. I like Smith-Marsette a lot as the punt returner. I think he should be the punt returner moving forward. I loved what I saw in college from him in the return game. I think he's much better than Gunnar Olszewski, and I stand by that. And I don't want to waste a roster spot on Gunnar Olszewski. I think Smith-Marsette, if need be, could actually play some receiver, but you don't want that. But whatever, I like him as a return man moving forward.
Yeah, Jersey guy, went to Iowa, and he had a nice return in this game. Obviously, had the one for a touchdown in the previous, so good for Ihmir Smith-Marsette. Yeah, but any other takeaways from this game other than Tanner McKee was Tom Brady out there and the Giants couldn't cover any sort of corner route outside the numbers?
Well, yeah, that's one of the takeaways, that they've really been bad on defense these last few weeks, right? Like Atlanta Colts and that's Joe Flacco Colts, and now Tanner McKee have just carved up the Giants in the pass game. But I just look at it, Nick, like, let me try to remember back to when this defense really shut down a Joe Burrow, a healthy T. Higgins, and a healthy Jamar Chase. A team that has not been shut down at all. And I know it was a long time ago, Nick, but that's when the starters were healthy. And that's what I'm going to look at. At this end of the season shit, it is what it is. We don't really have anybody out there at this point besides Burns and Kayvon. So I just kind of put it this. I mean, look, this is how somebody posited it to me, Nick, and I really respect this take. It's a really good take. They said, enjoying and celebrating a win today from the Giants if they had won this game, even though it is, beating the Eagles for the first time since 2013, is very similar to celebrating a preseason win. And I think when you look around the NFL and you see the slew of random quarterbacks playing and all the starters rested, across the board, star skill players rested, this is really a preseason game in a lot of senses. Now, it's not for the Lions and the Vikings, but this is a preseason game. And yeah, Barry Gooster says it's a glorified preseason game. Yes, it's a preseason game, essentially. And the stakes are preseason worthy. So yeah, with that in mind, and it really is true, I don't want to value. I would never value this win.
The stakes were not preseason worthy, though. The
Oh
stakes.
no,
were
that's the
great.
That's the point
Yeah.
he made. It was
Yeah.
it's a preseason game, but if you win, you actually lose a lot because you go from
Yes.
3 to 8 or 9 in the draft. So it's a preseason game, but actually worse. It's actually the stakes are actually higher in the sense, but worse, but devastatingly bad in some ways if you believe in that. And obviously, we do believe in the value of each pick in a draft. So. And even so, like I want to make this one more point, Nick. Remember, like, oh, it don't matter. I don't want a QB. I don't care if we go from 3 to 9. What about last year when the Giants won one of those corners, including Lassiter, who's having a phenomenal rookie season, and they couldn't get him because they were 6 picks behind that team in the second round. Well, this is what would happen this draft. So wake up and understand that's every single round, and the value of each pick matters a lot. Wake up and understand that. I don't care if you want a quarterback. Every time you should be wanting the best possible draft pick in each round. Even though I do think now, because there's a bunch of 3-win teams, Nick, it probably flips in each round. I'm not sure what the process is on that. There's some weird thing with that. But yeah, my point remains on that front. I want the best pick in every round. But yeah, man. So as far as the game goes, like you said, got torched in the passing game with McKee. These backups can't play the pass. It's decent in the run game at times on defense, I guess. Tracy had a couple moments that were interesting to me. A really nice vision run, cut back, showing the patience. Malik Neighbors, phenomenal player, phenomenal play. Drew Lock, horrible quarterback.
He was beating himself up, Malik Neighbors, on those few drops that he had. He was trying to secure that record from Brock Bowers.
Yes, and he's not going to get it because they're going to pepper Bowers in this last game. So there was no point to even chasing it. I'm happy that they rested him for.
Oh, he beat Steve Smith's record, so for
that he wanted, and I'm happy he got that. And as you saw on the Fox or the CBS broadcast, Pat Hanlon on the sideline signing the ball. It's like, here we go. Look at what we did. The Giants celebrate our 100th season. We got one thing done this year. But just kind of speaks a little bit to the embarrassment. But quarterback wise, Locke had a good game last week. Back to old Locke. So many checkdowns in this game, dude. It was embarrassing on those third downs.
The first drive or two, I was like, oh, Locke. Like the one play where he I think it was a shotgun. He got it. He looked left.
And went back right. I'm like,
he went back to the right. And Wandale was sitting right in between the middle hooks, and he just fired it in, and Wandale caught it. And I was like, freaking Locke. I'm like, maybe Locke's finding his stride. And then as the game went on, I was like, no, not really.
There's no stride to be found. Also,
and then they stopped. Like
the way they play the Giants now, it's really smart. They play us so top down. They're just like, it ends up just crunching on every time.
Well, I mean, it was Fangio too. And Fangio, if anybody knows Drew Lock, it's Vic Fangio.
Mm-hmm.
Very
good point. Yeah, he knows exactly how to beat Locke, and it showed in the second half for sure. So there was that on the offensive side of the ball, and then O-line handled the job pretty well. There wasn't a ton of jailbreak pressures allowed. Like the Giants O-line, despite being injured all year, like has stabilized in some ways that are not amazing, but in some ways they haven't in the past. Let's be honest. Some of those Flowers seasons and stuff like that were just really disasters.
It's a great point too, because after Andrew Thomas ended up going down, look at the guys the Giants have trotted out at tackle. Of like Evan Neal, Chris Hubbard, Tyree Phillips, like all these guys, Josh Azudu at one point. Like that's not a great situation for whoever the quarterback is. And all
new
things
center in this week too. Like they've been mixing centers, Stinney.
All things considered, though, the offensive line played better than I think a lot of us expected this season with the injuries. If you would have told us that we would lose Andrew Thomas, Jermaine Illuminor would be beat up by the end of the year, you wouldn't have JMS or John Runyon, and then guys like Jordan Davis were still playing. Like I would probably be like, oh man, Locke's going to be done back there. Now Locke didn't play well, but that wasn't necessarily because the guy was pressured all that much. He wasn't even sacked in this game, I don't think.
Yep. Agree with you. A great take by you. And it's an important thing we can reflect on, including how well they played in those first 5 games, which we've touched on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, but Andrew Phillips, you think he's pissed that Dane Belton knocked that ball away? I think that second interception, man.
Yeah, I think he's happy just to get that first. I mean, that was such a narrative that was tagged to him for so long.
Yeah, I think he did have one at Kentucky, but it got called back, and it was a pretty sick one too.
Okay.
And because I saw it and I watched it, I was like, oh crap, but it didn't count because I got called back for some stupid penalty. Speaking of penalties, when Kayvon hit Tanner McKee in the face,
he knew.
I saw it and I was like, that's going to be a penalty. Like, there's no way that's not a penalty. And then I saw it. I was like, oh, what a way. That is such the most 2024 New York Giants way to end this season was you have them in 4th down.
No, I
and then
totally
Boogie Basham jumps off sides, and Nacho just gets in his ass and starts yelling at him. And then it's like, okay, we get him back in position. We can get the ball back. It's going to be fine. And then Kayvon just runs right at Tanner McKee and basically clotheslines him and punches him in the face.
I think it's the opposite, though. I think it's the non-2024 Giants. The 2024 Giants do everything wrong. That somehow is right in this situation, this glorified
preseason. But they're not. They weren't trying to do it.
Sure. Yes. No, agreed. It wasn't intentional, but it works out for us. I don't need to win a glorified preseason game.
Oh, I agree.
And I know you agree with that. So I think we can get to supers at this point. We know what's going on here. The stage is set. We wait. We have 24, 48, maybe 72 hours to find out the fate of this GM and this coach. And then we move forward from that. We start thinking about stuff like combine, all the stuff that we'll get to. But do we have any supers today, Nick? Anyone?
Yes, we do. John Leary, thank you so much, John. John says or asks, 2 teams in front are taking quarterback Hunter. It is. Sounds like Daboll is back. See next year's schedule. Daboll and Schoen are fired next offseason's LOL.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot to talk about there. The 2 teams in front of us are taking a quarterback. So the Titans and the Browns are in front of the Giants, Nick and John. So the Titans, I think, are not a lock because, again, I want to make this clear. And we heard this from a lot of people. Dane Brugler said it last week. He said, the scouts that I've talked to do not have a lot of first-round grades on these quarterbacks. Then Tom Pelissero recently, I think it was either this morning or the night before, reported that teams do not have first-round grades on these quarterbacks. He also reported that there are players, and this happens every year, Nick, but there are players who are hot names with the media right now, hot names on Twitter, and hot names with the fans who may not have and do not have as high a grade with these teams and from the tape they've seen. And the name he mentioned after that, and it's the one I've heard as well, is Cam Ward. I personally am willing to take a shot on Ward at 3 at this point, Nick, just because F it, I want a playmaker and a baller, and he shows me moments of both. But you could watch his tape and understand why teams are not going to be fully thrilled with him because, A, he has all time back there. His O-line was amazing this year. There were no D-lines that gave him any pressure in the ACC. B, he lost that game to McCord that people don't like. C, it's just the system is just so non-NFL-like. It's just a pure projection. And he misses a lot of throws. Like you talked about, remember all the crap that people gave Drake May for missing throws last year? Get ready to watch Cam Ward tape because if you think May missed throws on his tape, Ward missed a lot more throws on his tape. And I think that's just part of the thing. I don't kill a quarterback if you miss some throws. Josh Allen missed 1 million throws at Wyoming. 1 million throws at Wyoming. So I just think that's not the be all end all. But yeah, go ahead.
And to get to John's point about next year's schedule, here's a little glimpse into the future. The Giants are going to play the AFC West. They're going to play the
that's the Chiefs,
the
Chargers with Harbaugh,
the Broncos,
who are on the rise, and the Raiders who could be a win.
The NFC North
that's devastating.
The Vikings, Lions,
literal
Packers,
best division in football.
Exactly, and then they're going to end up playing the worst teams in the other NFC divisions, which one of them happens to be the San Francisco 49ers.
No.
Yes. And then the other one will be the Carolina
49ers have the worst record in that division. That's such bullshit.
Then either the Saints or the Panthers. And then we play the worst team in the AFC East, and that's going to be either the Patriots or the Jets.
Ugh.
So that's going to be the Giants' schedule. Some of this still has to be sussed out because of like winning percentages and all of that. But the NFC North and the AFC West, that's brutal, dude. Those are 2 brutal divisions right now. Looking at it now, obviously, could change by then, but still, like, that's tough, dude.
Yeah, it may be insane. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't look at this, but like, I wonder if that impacts the decision to marry. I don't think it will. It just, it sucks though. Like, I want us, Nick, to do it. I hope we can not reference that again for my sanity for a while. No, I mean it because I don't want to go into. We have so many months before the start of the season. I don't want this to be another dead season of no hope. I need to find some hope. We need to find some hope. There has to be some glimmer, and we got to try and find it. And it's tough when you hear the schedule like that, but
it's a shame that the 49ers decided to get injured this year like crazy and suck like crazy. And then they finish last in their division. And they're like, oh, you got to play all the other shitty teams who were last in the NFC. And it's like, you look at the Giants, it's like, oh my God, dude.
You know what though? It is funny too, because it's like, if they keep Schoen and Daboll, right, Nick, these guys are going to be so hungry to draft a quarterback at 3. And they may just have the guy they want sitting on the board at 3. It's not a guarantee. I don't think that Tennessee or Cleveland takes one. But you would lose, 6 spots or so every round if they had won this game today. But if they had won this game today and dropped 8 or 9, I can kind of see the argument some fans have made that then they take, like, it wouldn't be Hunter. He wouldn't be on the board, but whoever is the best player available, they don't force quarterback. With that schedule, Nick, they're probably going 2 or 3 or 4, and then you can get Arch next year, potentially. So it's like, now it's stupid because
Yeah.
you can't project that far in the future. And as we've learned from this year, Nick, even if you're the worst team in the league by far going into week 17, you are no guarantee to get the number 1 overall pick. The Giants just proved that. So you literally can't do these kinds of things. But it does give me some pause personally at quarterback this draft. But I'll say this, Nick. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If the Giants draft a quarterback in this class and are horrible next season, draft a goddamn quarterback again. Draft a goddamn, don't care about the asset spilled. Don't sunk cost fallacy this thing. Get the guy who can win. Keep trying. Make sure it's your number 1 freaking priority to build a quarterback room. And by the way, it's not the worst thing to have 2 good quarterbacks. You can maybe trade one or he's your backup. I don't care. Get goddamn quarterbacks on this roster. We're sick and tired of watching bad quarterback play. We've been subjected to some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL over the last 6 years. And I don't care who disagrees with that because they're wrong. The stats prove it's been among the worst. The advanced stats prove it's been the worst. And the tape, all 3 factors are bottom 3 among all quarterbacks and all teams over the last 6 years. And it's enough. It's simply enough for us, for fans. So pour the assets into quarterback. I don't care. Go 2 years in a row. I just don't care anymore. So
I'm pretty sure they're going to, if Shane is retained, pour a lot of assets into the quarterback position. As we brought up on the last episode, the tight end position was another one that we didn't even mention in the last episode. Right. The Giants went into the 2023 season with 3 tight ends, 2 of them being basically glorified wide receivers, right? And the next year he went out and he brought in a bunch of tight ends to fill out that room and a bunch of beef to ensure that the blocking up front can be stable, although it resulted in only 3 wins. Additions like Chris Manhertz along with Daniel Bellinger, even though Darren Waller wasn't there, it's a completely different type of tight end room. But I was pleased with the tight end room this year and their ability to block up front. Dude, the Giants, again, they didn't win, or they won 1 home game. They didn't win 1 divisional game. And they guess how many points they had on the season, Dan? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, so I might just say it.
40 something last week.
I know they put 45 last week.
Okay, that's going to be even funnier than when we do.
I know it's hilarious. Because I'll give you a little bit of, so the Bears aren't good. The Bears had 310 points. The Panthers had 341 points. Let's go over and look at the Jets. The Jets had 306 points. The Patriots had 289. Wow. The Giants had less than all of them.
How much?
Giants had 273 points scored this year. Yeah. With a 45 burger on the Colts in week 17.
Wow. Yeah, they didn't score. And it's hard to score when you don't have quarterbacks. It's just a simple thing. Like, you just look at this freaking league, dude. Burrow scores. Mahomes scores, and he doesn't even score that much. Herbert's team scores, and they don't even try to score. They milk the clock. Okay, let's get to the others. Ravens, the MVP guys, the Bills and the Ravens. Those guys score. Oh, they have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. This is not rocket science. No. Like, you need to improve quarterbacks.
Very Guster brings up a really good point, and he says, in hindsight, it is kind of insane we might keep the coach who went 0-6 in the division. And I can completely understand what he's getting at there. And it's also like kind of nuts when you consider that the coach put it all on his shoulders and revoked Mike Kafka's play call and all of that. It's like you put it all on your shoulders and you fail so miserably and then you are retained. It's like, geez, man, like that's very benevolent of John Mara.
Well, here's what what's his
very
name?
Forgiving.
It is very forgiving. Here's what Ralph suggested earlier in his article, Nick. He suggested that Daboll and Schoen will meet with Mara after the season and have their chance to pitch their case as to why they deserve to keep their job and to play along into next season. And, part of that is going to be a big part of that. I know this matters to Mara is Daboll's case for why the locker room still believes in him. And we saw some comments this week from players that were like, yes, I still believe in Daboll. Yes, I want Daboll here. And so I know Mara, and he's going to say, look, if those guys were out on Daboll, that's it. He would have pulled the trigger immediately. They're fired. And I know that Mara is true with that to his word on that. But if they're not, and they still believe in him, that complicates things for Mara. Now he has to decide, this is a locker room that believes in the coach. Our record was really bad. We lost every division game, like you said, Nick. But was it because of what Daboll said and the pitch he's going to make? Because you know what Daboll's pitch is going to be, right? His pitch is going to be simple to John. When I get decent he said it last week in his presser. When I get consistent quarterback play and they don't turn the ball over a million times, I can win games for us. And so, and it goes back to last season. He got decent quarterback play out of DeVito in that 3-week stretch, kind of, I guess, or the Green Bay
Well,
game.
Tyrod too.
And Tyrod,
Yeah.
and they won some games after it, 6 games with a really bad injury situation. So that's the case. That's the pitch, and we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Let's see what else we got here. Cruz 80. Thank you so much. Cruz says, here's to you guys. Thanks for everything you do. Well, Cruz, thank you. We appreciate it. In Ernest, thank you. Says, gentlemen, here's to the end of this trash can. Happy for the chance to draft Hunter. Shout out to you two for the content and to the stud Malik Neighbors.
You know what, Nick? You mentioned last offseason, and I know it didn't end up working out the way we wanted to, but iron sharpens iron when it comes to Malik Neighbors working against Deontay Banks in practice. Well, now that would really be like supercharged. Malik Neighbors versus Hunter in practice would be so freaking fun to watch. I mean, Hunter, I watched Hunter versus the kid on Arizona who's phenomenal, McMillan. I saw a cut up of that recently. I was just watching the entire thing because it was just fun to watch him playing corner against McMillan, who I believe is personally the best wide receiver in the class. McMillan, he's the guy I would take 1-1. I think he should be a top 5, top 6 pick. I don't think the Giants are in a position to do it, Nick, but it would be so fun to have Neighbors and McMillan on this roster, and they like fit so well together too because they're totally different kinds of receivers.
I think you bring up an interesting point, though. And I think you're right. The Giants are not in a position to do that. But if the Giants do not believe in Jalen Hyatt, as some of their moves may suggest, and again, it's a little bit conjecture, but some of their moves may suggest that Darius Slayton might not be here. There is room.
We're weak at receiver again.
Yeah, exactly.
We're weak at receiver again. It's unreal. We can't get any of these positions down. There's nothing we can do right on this roster, it feels like. But yeah, I guess besides defensive end, I guess, with Kayvon. But like, yeah, or edge. So yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I'll say this: we're at 3, Nick. If it goes quarterback, which I actually don't think it will go. I really don't believe that. I don't think Ward is as viewed as high by NFL teams as he is by the media. Though I kind of like him more at this point than Sanders. I'm just like, F it. I want to play. I see baller playmaker when I watch him. I really do. I've been watching some of his film lately. And I don't know if it's going to work, Nick. I really don't, because again, like I said, his O-line is amazing, and that was my problem with Zach Wilson eval. He had such a good O-line at BYU that it screwed my entire eval up because he was balling, he was making plays for BYU, but it's like, of course he was. There was no pressure at any point. And the offense is just so not similar to an NFL offense at Miami or BYU, especially given the defense. But he still has the traits to just ball out and make plays. And I just want a playmaker at quarterback at this point. I want plays, Nick. I want plays on this offense.
You want plays to be made.
I want plays to be made. Even if it comes with some misses and some picks. I just want plays.
Yes.
That's it.
Hey, that's all we can ask for. We haven't received many plays.
We haven't seen plays. We don't get plays. We don't have passing plays on this team.
A very playlist group right here. Barry Gooster, thank you so much. Said, if Daboll is safe, does he try to bring Dorsey in?
If Kafka goes, yeah, I think. And if you're Kafka, I don't know why you'd stay, but if Kafka goes, then yeah, I think he could try to bring Dorsey in.
The whole Kafka thing, Kafka, like, are the Giants blocking him from making a lateral movement?
I think they have in the past.
They have in the past.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously not going to get a head coaching job.
Right.
So is he just kind of like toiling away, like, until his contract runs out here?
Well, also, it's possible that Daboll doesn't call plays next year because they asked him this past week about it, and he's like, look, we're 2-13. Obviously, I've not done a good job of that. And I was pretty, self-reflecting by him. He didn't say those exact words, but he hinted at that. So, if Dorsey comes in, he could call the plays potentially. I'm not necessarily sure I want that, to be honest with you. I don't think he did a great job with the Browns. I know his situation's not great, but I mean, it would be a pass-heavy script at that point. But do we have a quarterback to make it a pass-heavy script? He can't run a pass-heavy script with Bailey Zappi because we saw what that looked like yesterday.
The Zap man. Justin Boyce, thank you so much, Justin. I like the 3rd pick. Quarterbacks go 1-2. We don't trade up, and we're guaranteed Hunter, Graham, or Carter. It's Shane proof.
It is if you think quarterbacks go 1-2. I do not think that. I think Hunter will be the 1st or 2nd pick of this draft personally. I just don't think, again, from what I heard from Pelissero, from what I heard from Dane Brugler, 2 of the most locked-in guys for the draft, NFL teams do not have a lot of first-round grades on these quarterbacks. They do not like these 2 guys, Sanders and Ward, like the media and the fans have suggested. And it's not their fault, media fans. Like, you hear these are the known guys, right, as the best in any class. And then immediately you just think, all right, 1 and 2. So that's just how the NFL goes and at times. But, it's not always like that. Sometimes teams, remember the Pickett draft? That was Pickett the first quarterback off the board in like the 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So drafts happen like that.
That was when the Giants didn't have a quarterback. They didn't pick up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option, and they took Neal and KT.
Right.
Dude, it is something though. Now, I don't know. I don't think the Giants will go in this direction, but it's so early. So I'm just kind of speaking out my ass here. But imagine getting like a Mason Graham. Imagine getting like an Abdul Carter to just strengthen that defense.
I like Mason
Especially like
Graham.
someone like especially Graham, man, next to Dex. That would be
I
like
know.
Graham. So that's Michigan defensive tackle, Mason Graham, Abdul
Now
Carter.
we've got
And
Burns, Graham, Dex, and
and
Kayvon on a
KT.
D line.
Damn, dude. That'd
I
be
mean,
sick.
it would be phenomenal stuff. And funnily, funnily is not the right word. Ironically enough, it's not enough to really give you many more wins if you don't have a
No,
quarterback the next year. So then
exactly.
you kind of lose your way into Arch potentially.
And then Arch is coming into the league with a defense
I
filled with
also, by
those
the way,
dudes.
Nick, this is a conspiracy theory of mine. I think Arch is going to play multiple years at Texas as a starter, meaning next year and the year after, potentially more, unless a team like the Giants is at number 1 overall. And I think he would go to it. I think Eli is just going to be like, dude, it's great here. Trust me, they'll love you. And they'll give you such a long. I mean, the leash he would get from Giants fans with that name Manning on the back of his jersey. And I don't think he'll even need that leash, man. He's 6'5", unreal arm talent. I know he didn't look good when he finally got his start with Texas. He looked good in the first action, and then he had like a bad game. Whatever, dude. He had no reps with these guys. He's young and he's not playing. I don't give a fuck. I watched the tape of him. And I'm like, this dude has all the tools, literally all the tools, including he can run. He can actually run. He's a Manning with athleticism. That's freakish to think about that.
He's a mechanic, bro. He's got all the tools. Michael Riley, thank you so much. Tuto. Azor. Oh, man, now I'm terrible with these names right now.
These are Italian last names. You just have to find a way to get these right.
You just Tuto's our guy, too.
We're
freezing up.
If David Epstein comes onto the show,
Azori.
or if like, well, I don't know, like that's an easy one. Like, like a Finkelschlotz comes on the show. I'm going to hopefully pronounce that.
Okay, there are no Finkelschlotz coming onto our show.
There might be a Finkelschlotz.
The Italian last names are so much more difficult to pronounce.
No, they are not more difficult to pronounce than these Jewish names, like anything with an SCH or anything. No one's pronounced my name right my entire life. Every teacher's gotten it wrong.
Well, all your teachers suck, dude. I'm going to tell you, Schneier's not difficult to say.
It is for most people. I don't know how you know me, so it's different. But all I'm saying is you got to start getting these Italian names right. We're going to start to question who's the real Italian on this show. You want to be Italian, me, the guy who's lived his whole life wanting to be Italian, or you, the actual Italian.
The actual Paisan. Yeah. Azzurro. Now, Tudo, thank you so much, man. Love and respect to Nick and Dan, all diehard Giants across the pond. Greetings from our entire Italian rugby team currently in Paris. Oh, man, dude, I hope you guys are awesome. Some ass out there.
Friend of mine's on Morris Rugby. Big time Morris Rugby. He runs the Morris Rugby team here. So I'm actually going to talk to him about that. And maybe there's some kind of meetup or something, because he plays a lot of times like meetups in New York with teams from like out of country even sometimes.
Who is this?
Cool. My friend Brian McShane.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah, I don't think you know, but rugby's a crazy sport. I see some of his cut-ups and stuff. I know I am way too big of a you-know-what, and it starts with a P and ends with a Y, sorry for all the honestly, that's pretty well done. If you're watching with your kid, they won't be able to figure that one out. Yeah. That's pretty well done on my part. Very nice.
You literally dropped like 5 or 6 F-bombs and a bunch of GDs throughout this entire podcast. Apologizing for the P that ends with a Y. Come on, Dan.
But I am way too much of that to play rugby. I will look at that sport. Looks phenomenally tough to play. From a physical standpoint.
I'm sure it is. John Leary. John, thank you so much. Said cornerback, Papa legends, but lecturing fans got exhausting.
I don't know what that
I think is. Cornerback. I'm an idiot. It's Carl Banks. Carl Banks and Papa
are legends. Yeah. Look, gotcha. I understand that. Obviously, I have massive respect for both of those two people, and they have their way of thinking about this. I had a conversation with Carl this week, a private conversation with him about this whole thing. So I know how he thinks about this, and I understand it from his perspective.
Take Nick's Italian card away. Yeah. Thank you, Albin. Love
Give
you
it
guys.
To me. Give it to me, please.
Nah. No, we ain't doing that. SPP Williams, thank you. SPP says, if the pick rotates each round, then we get first sometime.
Yeah, I don't know what the scenario, I don't know what the exact thing is. We'll find it out, Williams, SPP Williams. Maybe Dougie Analytics, if you're listening, or maybe he'll tweet it out at some point. We're gonna find this out soon, though.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I mean, right now, the draft order isn't even solidified quite yet.
We'll play rotates us in the second round. The earlier, the better.
Bareth S, thank you, says, if Ward and Sanders are gone, what should have we do at quarterback?
It's going to be tough, Baroth. It's going to be tough.
Very tough.
You could take one in the second or third round. That doesn't tend to work out, but
I think we're going to throw money at a free agent, depending on what free agents are there. And it's not going to be like a Drew Lock. It's going to be somebody better.
Like a
I don't
Cousins.
know what's going on with Darnold. I don't know if he's getting it. Like, I have no idea what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings in that situation. That's a very odd one, but
They'd be idiotic to let him go, in my opinion, Darnold.
you
Never
can't.
mind. Never mind. They have Daniel Jones behind him. What was I thinking? Daniel Jones could slot right in and throw for 35 touchdowns. Oh, well, sorry. I malfunctioned for a second. But I think the Giants will go the free agent route probably if they can't draft a quarterback. And it will be, I mean, the one I would want, Nick, is Kirk Cousins. It's $1.5 million. It's the same situation as the Russ Wilson one from this past offseason. You don't have to pay him anything. That's what I want.
Yeah. And no, it's not going to excite anybody. But
now I will say this. I'm not going to reveal who told me this.
Oh, JG.
But somebody who was at and works within the Giants-Falcons game let me know that Kirk Cousins' arm looked absolutely shot during warm-ups of that game. So something to consider. Is his arm done?
I'm getting vindicated right now, okay? I'm going to take this vindication. It really isn't vindication. It's more my delusion. But AFC 5253 says Tutu Azori means all blue. It's not his name. So, it just means all blue. I just can't pronounce colors, apparently. So
again, it's an Italian. Either way. I don't know how you slice this thing. It's Italian pronunciation, and you got it wrong again. And this is not your first offense.
I don't even know if I got it wrong, man. I just I stumbled over it and then I quit right away.
You gotta have confidence.
There's no strength, I had no confidence. And the computer froze up too.
I think that was.
It did.
I'm suspicious. I don't know if that's true,
yeah,
but yeah.
Very, very sus. Very sus. Jed Bricker, also, thank you so much. Just want to thank you guys for being the best part of being a Giants fan these past few years. Your podcast is by far one of my faves of any genre. Jed, we really appreciate that.
Yeah, Jed, I really appreciate that. I think sometimes about the podcast, just when I'm like, I guess, introspective. Usually there are drugs that make me feel some introspection, and I enjoy those. And I think about just what it is, and it's like, it's not all it could be because the Giants suck. And that is the reality of the situation. And I know that because I see the numbers when they won that playoff game that year and had that run versus this. And I know the difference. And I just understand fandom. Fandom is you will fall off at times when they're bad. I totally get that. Like,
of course,
I don't know if I'd be listening to a Giants podcast right now if I didn't have a Giants podcast. I know I don't listen to any anyway, because Nick and I don't listen to the others. We want to keep our ideas kind of clean. But like, I don't know if I would be. So for us to do that, for you to be listening and saying things like this, like it's the best part of being a fan, it makes me feel really good and it makes me feel very happy. And sometimes I think about it, I'm just like, honestly, like Nick and I have become good friends. We weren't friends before the pod. We just didn't know each other, but now we've become friends unrelated to the pod. We've done a lot of things outside of the pod. And so sometimes I just think about it like I'm just getting on and I'm just talking ball about my favorite team with a friend. And that's kind of sick to think about, like how it's not like, I don't want to say easy because it's not always easy. It's kind of hard sometimes to talk about this team. And we felt that a lot these last 3 weeks. We were running out of the narratives are the same. We lost. When you're this bad, you lose stuff, but it's still cool to just be able to do that. And we'll always have, no matter what, Nick, which is nice. I think we've designed a really strong off-season plan. So where in my opinion, our best content comes from. So I think we'll always have that regardless how bad the team is.
Well said, Dan. And thank you so much, Jed. Yes, AFC 5253 also says, agree. If Joe Shane stays, keep Dave's. Can't advocate his firing without knowing which is replacement. Don't give us assets to move up. Don't give up assets to move up. Appreciate you guys. AFC 5253, we always appreciate.
I'm with you, by the way, AFC. I don't want to give up assets.
Absolutely not. We are in no position for that. He also says, love the quarterback rant, Dano, with you all the way.
I appreciate that. And I know that you're not in the minority. A lot of people have reached out and they think that, what I've said has not been unfair, and it's been very true about how bad the quarterback situation has been.
SPP, thank you so much, says Cam Ward seems confident and chilled. I think he fits well with Neighbors. He also has a variety of throw angles, which is great for Daboll's offense, and touch for bombs, which is great for anyone. He also says, totally agree, draft Milroe, whatever. Draft until you hit poor assets into the quarterback position. Milroe could be great. No one knows. No one.
So two separate things, a lot to discuss on both. The first one, I shouldn't say I've watched a lot. I've watched one game of tape so far on Cam Ward. It was the Duke game, and I've seen a lot of broadcast games. So that's where I'm at with that. So, and one thing that I pointed out in my notes immediately, Nick, was his ability to change his arm slot in a way around the line of scrimmage, Nick. His release is so quick on those, RPOs and then those bubble screens. That's going to work really well with Neighbors and really well with any offense, not just the Daboll offense. Being able to get that ball out fast with a quick release on those quick hitters gives the receiver such a better chance to yak it up and to make a big play because of what you did as a quarterback. It's something we've been missing forever. Daniel Jones, slow, over the top. David Cutcliffe taught release. Ball's not really placed well on almost any part of the plane except for the dig route. And so you're getting rid of that. And what you're introducing is somebody who doesn't have a Cutcliffe release. He can throw it from this slot and he can get the ball out, whipping it to a spot where Neighbors or Wandale or whoever, the running back, can take advantage of that. So I agree with you on that take with Cam Ward. As far as your second tape goes, I don't mind that take either. If we're sitting at the top of round 2, Nick, and Milroe's still on the board, can you see a Jalen Hurts path for Milroe? Maybe. He's a leader, right? He's got insane running ability, better than Jalen Hurts, right? Like if you look at it, Sai's done a great job of discussing this, Nick. Yeah. Jalen Milroe beat. Who was the guy who came out of Bama this past year in the draft? I'm trying to remember who it was. Who was with him last year in the draft? A fast athlete, or was it 2 years ago? Well, couldn't have been last year. So there was no good Bama athletes, I don't think, that were drafted last year. He made a point about this player. Might have been 2 years ago on the Bama roster. I'm not sure who it was. I'll ask Sai about this, but Milroe beat him in a 40-yard dash. Milroe potentially runs a 4.25 40-yard dash. That's what Sai posited. And I think the GPS numbers show that he's had some of the fastest mile per hour runs this year, Jalen Milroe. So what you're introducing to the offense is a big quarterback with a big frame who is probably the fastest player on your offense immediately, potentially even faster in a straight line than Malik Neighbors, which is insane to think about, Nick. But based on what Sai has tweeted and what we've seen in games from Jalen Milroe, he could be the fastest player on the field. What you can do with that is run some zone read, run some RPO, figure out ways to manipulate offense, similar to what Daboll did his first year with Daniel Jones, but just with a much, much, much better athlete than Daniel Jones. So I don't hate the idea of trying to find some offense. And plus, in that scenario, if you go Milroe round 2, now you can draft a quarterback the next year with a lot more freedom and a feeling of, all right, whatever, right? It's not going to kill us. And I think you should anyway go quarterback if you don't like your back-to-back years. I don't care. I just don't care. Always taking quarterback till I get it right. But yeah, I like that idea. It's probably my best non-round 1 plan, Nick, or my favorite so far that I've heard.
Jay Ferries, thank you so much. Time for all the shitty offseason desperate takes. Trade down for quarterback 1, sign Justin Fields, slight chance for Ward at 3. Otherwise, Mason Graham.
Yeah, I mean, shitty offseason desperate takes. Everything is desperate right now, Jeffrey. What do you want from us? We're a desperate fan base and a desperate podcast. I don't know what you would expect and how it could be any different. Look at what we've gone through. Desperation is a reality, and it's obvious.
Daryl, thank you so much for the super sticker. Zeke Anderson says, and thank you, no, Hunter, do what you have to get the darn quarterback and start to get this thing turned around. Stop it all.
Okay, Zeke, what about 2019? Wake up, Zeke. Wake up. In 2019, if we had followed your plan and do whatever you have to do to get the darn QB, we got Daniel Jones. We did it. We said we needed a quarterback. We convinced ourselves late on some idiot because of a Senior Bowl run that he had, and then we got him. And then what happened? He was a terrible prospect whose eyes were slow at Duke, ran a shit system at Duke that didn't see the field at all, doesn't have real arm talent. It's decent and adequate at best, got worse as time progressed. And now we went 6 years with that. So you want to just repeat that process and slam a quarterback just because it's your biggest need? No, that's not how you win in the NFL. You draft a guy if you believe in him at quarterback. But you can't just draft a quarterback to draft a quarterback. And I'm okay taking a shot on a real talent. Okay. And I'm okay taking a shot in round 2. I don't care. But you can't just look at it like this. You just can't. That's how they got Jones. That's why we're in this position we're in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all about taking as many shots as you can at the quarterback. There needs to be some fundamental level of belief. The thing is, like, Dave Gettleman did believe in Daniel. He talked himself into believing in Daniel Jones. So you have to like walk that line of can you rationalize and talk yourself into somebody? And even though he might not be good enough, or the odds are he won't turn into being good enough to be that quarterback. But thank you guys for the supers. SPP, thank you again. Says Daniel Jones was a Hunter submarine. He torpedoes everyone's career. No one's career counts until he's gone. He's gone. Next season is the real deal.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. He was much worse than a lot of fans realized, and I stand by that. And I think the film backs it up. The regular raw stats back it up, and the advanced stat. When all 3 pillars, like I've said, are as bad as they were, it's impossible to argue otherwise. And it is a little bit unknown how bad he was for players like Wandale, for players like Hyatt, for the development of even Neighbors and Slayton. And I include Slayton that even though they had a good rapport, Jones is so bad at the position and just saw the field so poorly post-snap that it hurt the entire offense.
And still, it was the best anybody has seen the film that played Giants quarterback other than Tyrod Taylor. Since
Not
you are
Tyrod, yeah, not including
yeah,
Tyrod. Tyrod played much better on tape.
exactly. But like that's like there's a stark difference between Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. That's how.
Yeah, that's how. But that just, I think, what that shows, Nick, is what we've talked about a lot: how bad quarterback play is around the NFL,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that baseline is just it's hard to find. It's crazy, dude. Like, how is it this hard to be good at quarterback? How, man? Like, does this go to my argument I've made before? It's harder than being a surgeon to be a quarterback because, technically speaking, there are more good surgeons in the world than good quarterbacks.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's only 32 starting spots, and there's a bunch of
And
very
they all suck besides like 8.
highly paid people on the other end who are trying to prevent you from doing your job. And you incur pain in doing this. Like pain is a massive factor in playing the quarterback position when you get hit, when you get injured, and all of that. And that will obviously facilitate your clock, and it could throw you off. And you could be the best thrower of the football ever, but like you get hit a couple times, that could throw off your entire internal clock. And it's something that these guys got to grapple with throughout their entire football playing careers. Tuto, thank you so much. Nick, Dan, please suit me up in Giants gear, and I'll guarantee you in every match, you won't see any quarterback or offensive lines walking out of pitch on their own powers,
Nice.
mate.
Nice, dude.
Love
What
that.
a beast.
All blue, baby.
I note to self, don't ever piss off Tutu.
No, absolutely. Jay Ferries, thank you, buddy. Worst season ever. Watching the worst teams on my season ticket in week 18, falling out of pick 1. I even fat fingered Pat Leonard a $50 super chat last week. It's only up from here, guys.
That's funny.
Jay's always good for a laugh, man. Thank you so much, Jay.
Nice.
Michael, thank you, buddy. Michael says, sign Darnold and take a BPA playmaker at 3.
I don't really want to sign Darnold. I mean, I could watch the tape, Nick, and make a more educated decision, but like, it feels like if the Giants signed Darnold, to $50 million a year for over 3 or 4 years, it just feels bad. It just feels like we're paying at the peak. It's like anytime, it's like you're buying a stock, right? Like, is it ever going to go up from there? Probably not. You're hoping it stays the same, and it's more than likely not going to go down.
Yeah. I mean, you would be paying at the peak for Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
It's just, could you identify somebody who could follow a similar route that Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield followed? And it's just, who is that player, right? I don't know. Because we watched Baker Mayfield. We watched Sam Darnold when they were in college, and you could see the arm talent on both of those guys, right?
Yes.
Like, we saw it. Baker is so comfortable in Cohen's scheme. We see what Darnold is doing, and now that arm talent is being, like, they're able to utilize that again because they're in stable situations. Can you provide a stable situation for somebody that you can buy on the cheap who's still relatively young? And I just don't know who that quarterback is, because like the names that get thrown out there are like Justin Fields. And it's like Justin Fields doesn't have that type of
can't process.
Exactly. He doesn't have that. Now, people would say Sam Darnold couldn't process before, and it was an accurate point, but Sam Darnold was still ripping certain throws and putting touch and pacing on on a lot of his passes. Like the talent was there, but it was a processing thing. So could you fix somebody like Fields? I don't know. And does Fields have that type of arm talent? I also don't know. I know he has a rocket, but I always thought Sam Darnold had better arm talent overall than Justin Fields, albeit Fields will flash sometimes. So can you harness that flash? I just don't know. And I don't know if they were willing to roll the dice on it, but you'd be rolling the dice on something so damn cheap anyway.
Right.
So that's
Nick, I just looked for the first time. I don't know. This is so off subject, but I just looked for the first time, and Carson Wentz is 1 for 3 with 10 yards passing, and the Broncos are already up 14-0. Just sucks. I wanted to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs. Just a side note, man. It's just disappointing to see that. I was hoping, somehow, some way the Bengals would make it. But yeah, no, what you're saying is 100% right. I mean, Justin Fields, it's a fun idea if you don't consider the fact that processing is everything at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm not advocating for, I'm saying just to identify somebody who could eventually be what Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are now. Because those guys,
and I don't know who that would be. I mean, at this point, like if you look at the free agent market at quarterback,
we got people saying Mac Jones and players like that, like
I don't think so.
I don't think they have that same type of.
I don't think Mac Jones is the guy. Anyone else?
But those are the names. Like Zach Wilson would be like a name. Like obviously, that's not something that's going to entice any of us. But like those are the types of names, because people 2 years ago would say, "Ew, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, that's gross." Like, what are you talking about? So like I think bringing at least one of those guys in on the cheap to see it isn't a bad idea. If they suck, it's such a cheap contract. And if you strike lightning in a bottle, that's absolutely amazing.
Correct. And I would agree with that. I think one thing is very important the Giants do is they approach this offseason at quarterback entirely different than they've approached these last few off seasons, and approach it in a similar way to how the Steelers approach this off. Steelers in a really difficult position to get a quarterback in this offseason, right? They had Kenny Pickett who was done, and they had a mid first round pick because they won enough games with Mike Tomlin. He never loses more than 9 or 8. So what they did, they got creative. They signed Russell Wilson because the Broncos were paying his salary and they knew they could get him for $5 million. They traded a late pick round swap or whatever it was with the Bears for Justin Fields. That's getting creative, and that's going all in at quarterback in creative ways that don't cost you a lot of assets. The Giants need to explore those avenues offseason, and not just explore them, but act on them. They need to act on them. So if that means Fields for cheap and Cousins for cheap, I'm in on that. Like Cousins at $1.5 million. I know the arm was shot at the end of the season. Maybe it's related to the Achilles recovery and how fast he came back from it, Nick. Maybe with an offseason to heal, he can push off and get more drive on the ball.
He's like 37, isn't he?
He's old, though. He's very old, and it's not great. It's not great. Okay. And Russell was old, too. But again, it's not great. I don't know. There's not a lot of solutions at quarterback. There never are.
It's a tough position.
It's why you don't want to win too many games to lose Drake May and Jaden Daniels, to be completely honest. It's the exact reason why.
Victor Perez, thank you, said, so Travis Hunter season?
Yeah, look, if what is projected, Nick, which is Sanders 1, Ward 2, which I don't think is going to happen. But if it does happen, I probably want to just sit at 3 and take Hunter.
SPP Williams said, love your passion. What's up?
What do you think of that?
What? My computer's frozen again right now, but you can hear me right now?
I can hear you fine, and you don't seem frozen at all to me.
All right, cool. It might just be my mouse, but yeah, I am fully on board with entertaining Travis Hunter. I don't think this is so early, right? We don't know, but if we want to prognosticate sitting here, I don't believe those 2 quarterbacks are going to be the first 2 off the board with players like Hunter and Graham and Carter in the draft from how I perceive their skill sets. So I don't want to say it's moot to go through, but yes, I would be completely fine with Hunter. And again, I got to watch a lot of tape on a lot of these guys, but like I watch a lot of college football, and there's some dudes who are going to be at the top of this draft who I think teams will be really interested in, especially teams who have quarterbacks.
Yep.
All right. So we have SPP Williams. I can't bring it up right now because I think my mouse is dead. So let me plug this bad boy. You fill some time, homie.
Yeah, I'll fill some time by saying this. Travis Hunter at 3 is something I'm really interested in for a multitude of reasons. One, I think he's
all right. Your time's filled. SPP will no, you're good, dude.
Go ahead. We'll talk about this
SPP Williams. I love your passion. Never change. All 22 is so
good.
You, thank you so much, SPP. Yeah, Jed. Thank you, Jed. Again, is there a way to take decision making away from Mr. John Mara? His father passed during Coughlin's tenure, and since then, it seems that John has only made bad GM and head coach decisions.
Yeah, the answer is no.
Yeah,
he's giving up this. So yeah, simple as that. No.
Yeah. SPP again, man. Thank you so much. I've watched some Bama. Milroe runs like a college rusher. He's that good.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you look at the GPS numbers, he might be the fastest player in college football, and that's not just at the quarterback position, at any position. So it's a weapon. That's now like you use him like a Jalen Hurts, early career Jalen Hurts, and you hope to generate some offense out of that.
PJ, thank you so much. PJ says, key is for Daboll not to run training camp like a country club. The team needs to be ready on week 1, and 2022 is not a good example because they had an extra week of camp, and they still only won on a short missed field goal.
Yeah, it's fair, PJ. A lot of people have posited that they don't like how Daboll runs training camp, and more importantly, they don't like how he runs the preseason. And someone made a good point the other day that they said Daboll treated Daniel Jones in the preseason like he's some star bona fide elite quarterback. That's what he told me, and our listener told me, and I was like, this is a good point. Like he did kind of always treat Jones like he's some star who doesn't have to play a lot of preseason. It's like, why? I mean, I don't think the reps would have helped him. He's just not a good quarterback at all and can't see the field. But like, it is a weird way to treat somebody who's been bad his entire career, except for 1 year where he didn't even throw outside the numbers or throw the ball at all. And they were dead last in explosive pass plays, and they ran a gimmick offense.
I'd say this. I don't think the training camp was rigorous this year, but I was there a lot, and the beat reporters who were there in the previous season said it was a more rigorous training camp than it was heading into the 2023 season, where they basically showed up week 1 and just got haymaker to the ground by Dallas.
Oh yeah.
Zeke Anderson comes back and says DJ was a bad pick. Who says they don't believe in the quarterbacks available? The game is built around the quarterbacks, and in my opinion, there are 2 franchise-changing quarterbacks in this draft. We need to get with the times.
No, I'm with you, Zeke. If they believe in these
you guys are on
quarterbacks,
the same page.
yeah,
yeah,
we want them to take a quarterback, and I'm okay even just taking a swing at this point. We're so dead at this position. But of course, if we did that, we would have to keep in mind that the last time we did that in 2019, we were fooled by a, I guess, good rookie season by the fans' perspective. But the reality was Daniel Jones had a negative EPA as a rookie in 2019. He had horrific games against all of the good defenses he played in 2019 as a rookie. He had 5 touchdowns against Washington. Great. But again, he beat up a bad Jets defense, and the Lions are playing man coverage the whole game, and he threw some touchdowns in Detroit in the Dome. But again, most games his rookie season were horrible, and he ended up with a negative EPA. So if that happens again, and there are flashes from this rookie we draft, but we are horrible, we do not repeat what we did in 2020, which is pass on Justin Herbert to draft Andrew Thomas, which is fine. Andrew Thomas is great, but we lost out on Herbert. If that happens again next year, and we draft one of these quarterbacks, we need to be very cognizant of the idea of drafting over that quarterback and not repeating 2020, which could have changed the whole franchise. If the Giants say F it, Nick, and they trade Jones for a 2nd or 3rd rounder, which he might have got at that point after that rookie season, a 2, maybe even a 3, maybe even a 2, I should say, with some incentive base to move it up to a 2 or a 1, and you draft Herbert, the whole franchise changes at that point, you know? Yeah. And so it needs to be kept in mind.
And then we would have drafted Rashawn Slater, and Rashawn Slater and Justin Herbert would have been here instead of with the Chargers.
Right. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Nah. That would have been nice. All right. But Paul Bigelow, thank you. Says this offseason going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason. That's good for us because we need it.
Yes. AFC 5253 also said we will have a much better idea after free agency. Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. David Goodman. David, thank you. Said trade 2nd-round picks for JJ McCarthy and then trade down in round 1 to recoup assets.
That's a cool plan, David, but I doubt Vikings are going to take a 2nd-round pick or 2 2nd-round picks for McCarthy.
What if the Vikings go on and they win a Super Bowl and everything like Sam Darnold goes and he's the MVP and it's just like
no, I'm saying even if all that happens, I think they're just going to Packers route this thing. Why not Packers it? Just keep him on the roster.
Darnold is. I'm just trying to have fun here, but Darnold is what, 27? He's young.
No, they should not let Darnold go. He's playing phenomenal football. And anyone who doesn't see that is not watching the tape. But like, they could also just keep JJ like the Packers did with Jordan Love and just let it ride out. And then he finally plays in like his 4th or 5th year of his contract. And great. He learned all that time. So I don't think they're in a rush to trade McCarthy.
No, but they do have Daniel Jones waiting in the wing.
Oh, I forgot. They've got Daniel Jones. What was I thinking?
Mullins, baby.
Of course they're going to trade. Oh, my God. I'm an idiot. How did I miss that, Nick? They have Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. So of course they should trade McCarthy. You re-sign Jones. Okay. Darnold, franchise tag him. Make him prove it. He doesn't play that well next year. Jones, you have your answer. Daniel Jones. Holy shit. I totally forgot about. Yeah. It spaced me. So they have Daniel Jones on their roster. So if I'm the Vikings, I let Darnold walk. I trade McCarthy. I just rock with Jones.
You're kicking homie while he's down, man.
Dude, he just learned under. He's so good. He just learned under. I can't believe I forgot that. Holy shit! First of all, we just have a super for $100. This is insane. It's our biggest super ever. What am I? And there's no comment. Matt. I'm going to try to pronounce his name right. Matt Hunwardson. You, my friend.
Hunwardson.
Hunwardson. That's actually correct. See, you can do it unless it's Italian. You just gave us $100 super. That was unbelievable. Nick, we need to find a way to move these supers off YouTube because YouTube is taking a percentage of every super. We need to put our Venmo out there. So have it be just that. I'm not even kidding. I'm really not kidding. Because YouTube,
sure, that would be frowned upon.
Something like this happens. So nice of you, Matt, to do this, and we really appreciate it. I don't want YouTube getting a cut, but I shouldn't be saying that. They probably scrub this, listen to this. If you can edit that out, we can because it's alive. I don't want them docking us in any way, shape, or form. So
we'll see. It'll be interesting. We
love you, YouTube.
Get censored by YouTube.
YouTube is the best thing ever.
Matt, thank you so much, though. And WJ, thank you so much. Says it's crazy it took us 6 years to be in this position to fix a spot we should have been recognized was a weakness. That DJ and Barkley pick set us back.
For sure. I mean, we've talked about at length, WJ, but you are 100% correct.
Absolutely. And then Zari Lecoq says,
that's probably not right.
Thinking the Raiders got desperate and trade up with the Browns. Punting a year and bringing in a vet quarterback plus pairing Hunter with Neighbors isn't a bad idea.
Let me start by saying this, Zari. I apologize on Nick's behalf. We know this is obviously Zari Lecoq. And
Do we know that?
we don't know that, but
Yeah. Well, why are you doing this? We could have just skipped over it. Now you just made it awkward.
well, I was trying to, Zari is in a position where I'm sure if it is Lecoq, he's heard all the jokes, stupid jokes his whole life about Lecoq.
Dude, you just keep digging, bro. You just keep digging right now.
Zari, we're on your.
What they said.
All right, let's address what he said. I think the Raiders get desperate and trade up with the Browns, maybe. Punting a year and bringing in a vet quarterback and pairing Hunter and Neighbors isn't a bad idea. Yeah. I mean, Hunter is, remember when I said a couple weeks ago, Nick, that a blind chimp could have evaluated Malik Neighbors and drafted him, and I stand by that. A blind chimp that's also deaf, so he can't even hear anyone talking to him about how good this guy is, could draft Travis Hunter, and that's the type of generational prospect he may be. He's so good. And the fun thing is, if you draft Hunter, Nick, and we actually become a good team and like creative, fun team, we could start seeing like a red zone package where Hunter just comes in at receiver.
That's what it would be.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't
Third downs and red zones. Third down too, right?
Critical situations, certain looks that the Giants like, matchups that they like. You can do a lot. You can have this guy play defensive back and then just have certain packages that you like. He doesn't need to be a full-time wide receiver, but you'll have packages where he can get like 5 looks in a game or something.
I know.
Like that, off like 20 snaps or whatever the hell it is. You can have a lot of fun with it. And he's that good at both positions to where I think it could be successful. So he's
who have watched Shador have told me they believe that when they watch Shador, Hunter bails him out most of the time. That's their opinion. I'm not saying it's mine. I haven't watched enough Shador.
Yeah, same
it's just
here.
something to consider, like how good he is.
And we got one more from Trenton Wright. It says, Eagles fan here. We will trade you McKinney for a 1.
Nice.
Enticing.
No, I'll just steal him off your practice squad when he gets placed back on there for free.
For real. Hey guys, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the supers, especially the big one. That was amazing of you. Really appreciate it. We've talked at times about doing like a Patreon. Nick and I haven't done that. Maybe this is the off season we finally do that, and we can have the live chats there and get it over there. We'll see. We'll see what this off season entails. But thank you so much for sticking with us. This is our last game review of the season, and we really appreciate the support. And good times are ahead because the draft season's fun. And it's where Nick and I do our best work, we believe. We're going to have a ton. Just to give you a little preview for those who haven't been with us during a draft season, what you usually get, what we've done the last, I think, 3 years, is a podcast every single day in April. And you may say, oh, wow, that's a lot. And what that will include is prospect profiles. It will include some this or that type players in tough spots, or, like a corner that we rank similar. Where do we get mock drafts? We're going to do 7 rounders. Tons of interviews with guests. We have a good lineup already formulating on that front. We've had good lineups in the past just to discuss different position groups, the draft overall as a whole, I should say, and a few other things like that. So a lot of really in-depth draft coverage is coming. So if you are someone or know someone who likes draft coverage, is not a Giants fan, I would hope that you maybe direct them to our page, because during draft season, you don't have to be a Giants fan to want to, or to enjoy this content, because we're just breaking down a lot of prospects, and a lot of them don't get drafted by the Giants in the end. Most of them do. Almost every one of them doesn't get drafted by the Giants in the end. So that's just my pitch. And thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one.